too long. We are the children of Israel. We are Bani Israel.
That's right.
We are the biblical Israelites.
Well, so we can come out of this captivity and start worshipping God as we're intended to.
Yeah.
Come and talk to us for a second.
2 minutes.
Do you know, I'm going to ask you a question, right? So, what would you say your nationality is? Nigerian. What tribe are you from? You know, Yoruba. Has anyone ever told you that you're an Israelite? No.
You know who the Israelites are? Are you Christian? You say you grew up Christian, yeah?
Yeah. So, if you're a Christian, right, that means you've read the Bible at some point in your life, haven't you? Yeah? So, the Bible, right, this book right here, right, isn't a religious book, right? This book is a book of culture, right, and history, and writings of a people. It was written by a people, to a people, and for a people. And that people is your people, right? That people is your people, right? And how we got to the understanding of who we are, right, is through this book, right? Because the things that were put on our people, right, were for signs and for wonders, right, so that we would know who we are. Right, so get me Deuteronomy 28, right? Deuteronomy chapter 28, because Deuteronomy 28, right, outlines blessings and curses, right? And God said to the children of Israel, He said, if you keep my commandments, all these blessings will come upon you. That was from verse 1 down to verse 14, right? From verse 15 onwards, He says, if you don't keep my commandments, all these curses are going to come upon you, right? And I'm gonna read a couple out of here, right, just to give you an idea of how we got to the understanding, because all these curses here are on our people wherever they are, right? So we're gonna go to verse 45.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 45, and it reads, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee,
right,
and overtake thee,
right,
till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God.
Right, so it says that the curses are going to pursue us, so no matter where we go, there's no way of escaping them. So people might think they can run from the Most High, but they can't run from Him, right? Read on.
Unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep His commandments and His statutes which I command thee, which He commanded thee.
Right, because we didn't keep His commandments, right? Read on.
And they shall be upon thee for a sign and a wonder.
And they should be on us for a sign and for a wonder. So you know a sign, what's a sign for? You know when you see a sign, what's it for? To warn you, yeah, to show you something.
Or to give you
direction.
direction,
To give you direction.
like you're on the road.
Right? Read on.
For a sign and a wonder, and upon thy seed forever.
And upon my seed forever, meaning that it's going to be generational. So you've heard the term generational curses, haven't you? Right? That's what was put on us, the generational curses. Right? Read on.
Okay. And upon thy seed forever, because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart,
right,
for the abundance of all things.
Right, so he says, because we didn't serve the Most High, right, in gladness, like happy, right, to serve Him, because He gives us everything we need, right, because we didn't do that, right, what did He say He's going to do?
Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemy.
Therefore we shall serve our enemies,
which the Lord shall send against thee.
Right, which the Lord shall send against us.
In hunger and
right,
in thirst.
So when we go to the food shops and stuff like that, who owns them? It's not our people that own them. Very few of our people own that stuff, right? And even if they do, remember, they've got to go to the farmers or the manufacturers and stuff like that to get the stuff, right? And then they've got to pay those people, so then they're still paying into the system or into our enemies' pockets, right? Read on.
And in nakedness.
And in nakedness, so clothes the same thing. It's exactly the same thing, right? Read on.
And in want of all things.
And in want of all things. So if you wanna drive, who you gotta go to? The other nations. If you wanna go for a birth certificate, you need to go to the other nations. If you want a passport to fly to another country, you need their permission. You need their permission. But that's the problem, right? The Most High said that He was gonna send enemies against us, right? In want of all things, right? So let me just read this because right, He said. Sorry, you can hold it to me. Put it down.
Yeah, let's go back.
That's it. So, the Most High said that He's going to send enemies against us, right? In want of all things, right? So, how did we get into Africa? Because some of our people, right, were taken from the west coast of Africa, right, and put into the transatlantic slave trade, right? So, some of our people were still living there, but remember, even though they were living there, they were still being persecuted by the enemy, regardless. And now that's why a lot of the propaganda about Africa is like bad. Everything is bad about Africa. That's what they show, and that's because they're still in control of that area.
Well, don't you find it weird that whenever there's anything about Africa on TV, it's always, oh, it's a third world country, but there's parts of Africa that are rich, that are wealthy. You go to South Africa, you go to certain parts of Nigeria. Everyone's not living in mud huts. But why is that what they push on the media? Because that's what they want people here to believe. You got to understand that no matter where you find us, even though we see each other, we're all black. So you might see a Jamaican, we resonate with each other because we're all coming from the same history. The problem is that the so-called Caucasian man, the so-called white man, because he's not white, we're not black. You're not black. Your bag is black. My brother's T-shirt's black. You're not black. You're brown. You're a dark shade of brown. I'm a lighter shade of brown. And what they've done, they've tried to segregate us and separate us because the Bible says a house that is divided against itself cannot stand. And that's why their army tactic, their war tactic is called divide and conquer. Divide and conquer, because that's what they want us to do. But we need to come back together. So what my brother's trying to make you understand in a nutshell, because he's going to go into it, is that we've been told our whole life we're Christian. You've been told you're Nigerian. We've been told we're Jamaican. We've been told, all these different things, but the point is, we're the chosen people of God. That's why, when you look at the sports world, what do you see? In basketball, who runs basketball? Football? No, definitely not. It's definitely not. Look at all the greatest. It's always people. It's all definitely not. Look at golf. Who's the best golfer? Tiger. Who's the best racer? F1. Lewis Hamilton. And then make sense. No matter where you put us, we're the greatest. If you made the swimming pool warm, we'd be the best in swimming. But it's because the swimming pool's too cold. But the point is, you need to break these. When he says generational curses, we need to break them, because our people. When I ask most of the people here, like, you're Nigerian, you know that you're Nigerian. Your parents have told you that means you're proud of being Nigerian. You know you're from the tribe of Yoruba. Here are people. You ask people and they go, "Oh, I'm black." What does that tell you? It means that we've been disconnected from our ancestry. We've been disconnected from our heritage. We don't even have a language. So now, you being Yoruba, he's going to go into the history, because this isn't like a book that's religious. It's called secular history. So when you go into school, if they're teaching history, they could read from this book because it's known history. So this is going to prove to you how Israelites got into Africa, and how you know that when we're saying you're an Israelite, we're not making it up. We haven't just come up with this understanding now.
Right. So go back to Deuteronomy 28, right, and hold where we was in verse 47. But the reason why I'm bringing this out, right, to you is for you to understand how your ancestors got into Nigeria, because some of us were taken on slave ships, some of us weren't, right? So you need to understand how your people got to that point where they were, right, which is Nigeria, which is the west coast of Africa. So this is a book called From Babylon to Timbuktu, right? If you ever want to have a read of it, it's called From Babylon to Timbuktu. You can get that online.
Yeah, picture of it.
You want a picture of it? Yeah, so this is page 84, right? And it says, in the year 65 BC, the Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem. In 70 AD, General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Jewish state with great slaughter. During the period of military governors of Palestine, many atrocities and many outrages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people. during the period from Pompey to Julius, it has been estimated that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa, fleeing from Roman persecution and slavery. The slave markets were full of black Jewish slaves, right? So we fled into Africa, right? Get me the scripture that says flee into the mountains as well. Get me that scripture, right? Because we're in Israel, right? The Messiah said, like, when you see Jerusalem compassed with armies, right? Flee into the mountains, right? Flee into the mountains. So from Jerusalem, you could see the mountains of Africa. So that's why they fled towards that area, right? And then when they got to Africa, majority of us fled to the west coast, but some of us migrated other places as well. So you'll find our people scattered throughout Africa, right? Not just one place. And not all Africans are, or because the reason why they've called it Africa is to generalize it rather than having separate nations, right? And if you generalize it, you can call everybody that's on that continent African and give everybody a generalized statement. And that's why, and the reason why they did that as well is because they use the same thing in America. That's why they call the black people there, so-called black people, African American. How can you be two continents? How can you be that? That doesn't make sense. Right, and that's to confuse people.
And you know, because looking at Africa, there's so many different kinds of people. They make out like everyone in Africa is exactly the same. You've got Somalians, Ethiopians, Eritrea. There's so many different kinds of people that you got to understand who they are, because the Most High made us all different for a reason. Did you want that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so this is Matthew chapter 24, reading from verse 15. It says, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation,
right,
spoken of by Daniel the prophet,
right,
stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea,
right,
flee into the mountains.
Right. So when they see the abomination of desolation, so that's when Israel was compassed. So you remember when I read in there that they captured Jerusalem, right? He was talking about that time, and he said to them, when you see this happen, flee to the mountains. Right? And what happens is that when it came to Christianity took the reality out of that book. The reality, they made it into some fairy tale, some mystical thing. But these things happen. Right? And the reason why they took it is for them to run with it and make up a load of crap. Because what people would say as well is that this book was used in slavery. It wasn't used in slavery. They made a Bible for slavery. Right? And they took select verses from here to justify slavery. That's what they did, right? To justify it. That wasn't the book they read to the people, right? So go back to Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy 28.
Yeah.
Right, so verse 47 was on it, but it's just after that.
Because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things.
Right.
Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things.
Right, read on.
And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck.
And he shall put a yoke of iron upon our neck. Do you see this here? Right? I'll give you a challenge, right? If you ever get a chance, right, go onto Google, right, type in yoke of iron, see if you can find anywhere in history, right, in slavery, in any slavery, because they say, oh, everybody went through slavery. Nobody went through the slavery we went through. Our slavery was so bad, they even gave it its own name, chattel slavery, right, because they treated us like cattle. That's what they were doing, right, treating us less than cattle, less than dirt. That's what they were doing. They were cutting women's bellies open, right, when the baby would drop on the floor. Then they would have bets on who would die first, the mom or the baby. They would get the babies, right, and use them as alligator bait, toddlers alligator bait.
Yeah.
Right? They don't talk about
alligator bait. They used to get our children, tie them to sticks, and bait alligators out so they could kill alligators. And they won't teach you this in school. What's the most they taught us about slavery in school? Did you watch Roots? You watch Roots, innit? That's all they show you. When they teach us about our history, it starts at slavery. Why? Why did it start at slavery? Nothing goes beyond that. But before that, we ruled Europe. It was called they call it the Dark Ages. Just Scotland, we ruled Scotland. A lot of the kings and knights who you hear about at these round tables were Israelites. They were Negroes. But they don't want us to know the history. They don't want us to know the history. All the inventions, you know how many inventions we made? You know the light bulb? Who made the light bulb? They'll have you believe it's Thomas Edison. You heard of Edison? It wasn't him who made the light bulb that we use today. He came up with the original concept, but it was a Negro who came up with the filament that made us able to use light bulbs. Toilets in general, Negro invented it. The elevator, you get in a lift, a Negro invented it. The internet, we invented it.
Phones,
But they don't.
Mobile phones.
Mobile phones, they don't teach us this because they don't want us to know. Because once we come back to knowing who we are and why we are in the position we're in, then we're gonna actually elevate.
Touch phone. You know
Touchscreen phone.
You know when you dial, touching on your phone. That was invented by a Negro woman, right? And caller ID. So when people phone you and the names come up, that was invented by a Negro woman. The same woman invented the fiber optics that they use now to make fast internet. She was the first one to invent that.
But they will never teach us this because they know who we are. Have you not? Think about it like this, and I'm gonna try and make it as clear, like as plain as possible. Think about it. We are in slavery. You know, the fact that we're in England and we've had to emigrate and we were took here on slavery. We're in a lower state. We're in the hands of our enemies. Everyone who runs this country, who runs the banks? Is it us? Who runs the media? Is it us? Who runs the music industry and entertainment? Is it us? No, because the people who are in charge have us under subjugation. They can they give some people a little bit of money and raise us up. So why on earth is it that no matter what we do, they copy us?
Right.
Think about it. Imagine this. Imagine you're at your lowest estate. At the moment you're taken as a slave. You're in a country that's not your own home. You don't know your history. You don't know your language. And now there's people out here still copying you. Because when you walk around, you see people farms each other. How many people you see do that? You see people say Wagwan. That's not everyone's culture, everyone's language. All these things they're taking and stealing from us because they know that we're the children of the Most High.
Right. What's your name? Well, Adi. You're not a Nigerian.
You're not Nigerian.
You're an Israelite. You're not Nigerian. Yes, you were born in the land. What they call it Nigeria. You know you didn't name yourself. You know the Nigerians didn't call themselves Nigerians. You do know that, don't you? Yeah. You know that word. You know the word actually means nigger. It means nigger. Even there's a river there. They call the river. They say Niger, but it's not spelled Niger. It's spelled Niger. And that when you go to the actual word, it's a Latin word, and that word is pronounced nigger. It means the river of the blacks. That's what it means. Nigeria is the land of the blacks. That's what they're saying. Okay, you're not Nigerian, right? Now, in the ancient world, when they called you black, all it meant was that you were a darker shade, because Israelites came in many different shades of brown. You know, you had the light brown, right? The lighter brown, which we say we call them yellow, or a light skin, right? And then you got the darker skin. And then you got the really dark skin because we mixed with we were Asiatic people. That means we had a very red tone of color. We were brown, but we had a red tone. But we went into Egypt, and we mixed with the Egyptians. The Egyptians were Hamites. The Hamites, the word Ham, the son of Noah. His name in the Hebrew means blackened. It means blackened. So Ham was a very dark skin son, right? So when we went into Egypt and we mixed amongst the children of Ham, we became darker tone, right? We became a darker tone. So when we came out of Egypt, we had a mixture of tones amongst us, and so we would say, we would use a Latin word, nigger, for even our own brother, because we would say, in black, right? But the term black cannot apply to a nationality. It's a color. Right? The nationality of the person has nothing to do with the tone of their skin. It's to do with bloodline seed. Right? Now, our seed, and when they trace it back, and they're even doing DNA tests now, and even in their DNA tests now, they know the people who are claiming themselves to be Jewish people in the land, they know that they're not. Their DNA doesn't match.
These people do look like this. So when you hear them talk about Israelis and Jewish, They
Right.
know they're Europeans. They know they're not from that land. That's on the tectonic plate of Africa. It's Africa.
And just to add on to what was being said as well, because everybody comes from Adam, right? And when you go down the lineage of Adam to Noah, right, there was 3 sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, right? And Ham, this book here, right, this is called the Zondervan Bible Dictionary, right? Because they called us, when they took us into slavery, they called us Negroes, right? That's the name they gave us, right? And they never ever put, you know, one like if you ever like check out like the sale posters and stuff like that for the slaves, right? They never put Africans on there. They always put either Hebrews, or they put on their Negroes, right? Why is it that they call them Negroes? And if you ever look on old cartography maps, right, old cartography, it says on the top of Africa, Negro land, because they knew who was there, right? So this is a scholarly book, right? It's under the Bible Dictionary, right? And now it gives you the definition of Ham, right? So it says, Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of 8 persons to live through the flood. He became the progenitor of the dark races. So he became progenitor because they say that all black people come from Ham, right? But then it says, not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, the Ethiopians, the Libyans, and the Canaanites. So there was a difference between who they call Negroes and Hamites. There's a difference between them. Right. So although we're dark-skinned people like them, we're not the same people. There's a difference between us. There's a difference between us, and they've put that in their own scholarly books, right? But they're not going to teach that because they don't want you to come to the understanding of who you are, right? They don't want you to wake up. Why? Because our what's being down is their heaven.
Right.
Is their heaven, right? They're able to do what they want on this earth.
Right, and they're all up in Africa, and they've still got all the African continent under colonization, right? So the reason why they show Africa in the light that they show it in is because they don't want the Africans, right, to realize they're sitting on the gold mine. Africa is sitting on the gold mine. The Africans are sitting on the gold mine, right? So what they do is they keep everybody divided, especially the Israelites, because they know who are the Israelites in Africa, right? And then what they do, they go down there and they siphon out all the all the oil, the precious metals, right? The gold, the diamonds, right? But then Africa is still poor.
Yeah, they push Africa like it's poor. They show you all the poor stuff and then steal all the goods from them.
Right. Because there's no Europe hasn't got any
Anything.
hasn't got any minerals.
Yeah, no.
Any things of substance. Europe ain't got nothing, right? Europe is depleted, right? So all the majority of what is here in the West is coming out of Africa. They're just not telling anybody. They're pretending, it's just manifesting in Europe, but it's not just manifesting. They're going down there and they're taking it from the continent of Africa. But because the Africans don't know who they are. Why? Because they have taken the history and they have messed with the history. So people don't know who they are. They don't know who they are. Israelites don't know who they are. The Hamites don't know who they are. Right? The Canaanites don't know who they are. Right? The Libyans don't know who they are. The Egyptians don't know who they are. They're just believing, we're Africans. No, the scripture tells us that the Creator made 18 nations. He made 18 nations. And those nations are not done away with. They're still here on the earth today. They're still here today. Every single one of them. And one of those nations is the Israelites, and those Israelites are the chosen people that the Most High chose out of the 18 nations that He formed. Right? So you're an Israelite. You're an Israelite, and don't let anybody. If somebody says where you're from, and you say Nigeria, and then they say, that means you're a Nigerian. Say no, I live in Nigeria, but I'm an Israelite. That's your actual nationality, and nationality is determined by seed. Your nationality isn't governed by where you're living.
Yeah.
I'm living in England. People say, so you're English. No, I'm living in England, but my seed, my nationality comes from my dad.
Yeah.
Right? And my dad didn't come from here. He came from Jamaica, and his granddad, great granddad, didn't come from Jamaica. Right? They were taken from the northwest coast of Africa. Right? And the people who are in the northwest coast of Africa wasn't always there when you go into the history.
Yeah.
They migrated there. And when you go, if you go, you got you see you got Igbo, right? Igbo in Nigeria. The Igbo. What you need to do is go and study the history of the Igbo, because Yoruba and Igbo, right, are the same people, but just different tribes. Right? Yoruba, the name Yoruba is actually in the book, is in the Bible. It's in the Bible. The name Ashanti, it's in the Bible. Right? Because it's our book, it's the history of our people. Right? Now if you go back, you look at the history of the Igbo. Igbo know that they migrated from the Levant, from Israel, from the land of Israel, the land of Canaan, and migrated over to the northwest coast of Africa. They know that.
It's even the word Igbo is even just like a bastardization of Hebrew.
Hebrew, yeah.
Igbo. So even if you look at some of the slave posters where they said they're looking for slave, they put Igbo because they knew that they were looking for Hebrew slave. Igbo is like a bastardization of the word Hebrew because they knew who we were. The Igbo are, Yoruba are, Ashanti are, Ga. There's all over Africa we were scattered. But our people don't know. And because we don't know, and why do you think, don't you find it weird that no matter what religion there is, we find ourselves in it? How many Negroes, how many so-called black people do you find in Islam? Loads of them, aren't there now? I bet you know a load of them. In Christianity, it's a religion. We're not out here teaching religion. In Buddhism, they'll follow anything, but wherever we follow it like wholeheartedly. But we need to come out of religion. That's the point, because it's not about religion. It's about culture, and it's about coming back to our
Heritage.
Yeah, our heritage and our stead, because we've got promises
Coming in.
We've got promises coming. So the way the world is now, you need to think about, okay, what are they pushing in the schools? They're pushing homosexuality. If you go to the schools, you know they're handing out books and teaching kids to read books called My Two Mummies and Me, My Two Daddies and Me. It's children. You know they've got transgender women, and what are they called now? Where they dress up as
drag queens.
drag queens coming in to read books to kids. You know they're trying to make paedophilia legal. Do you know what they're calling them? They're not calling them paedophiles no more.
Yeah.
They're calling them minor attracted persons, saying they're attracted to minors.
Yeah. Trying to make that legal.
And they're trying to make it legal. All of these things are happening because we are not in our position. Because we're not doing what we're supposed to. We're not teaching the Bible. People ain't believing in the word of the Most High. And that's why we need to come back and wake up, because the world can't continue like this. Because if you can't see, the world's going into a state of destruction. World War III is on its way. How many animals are extinct? The dodo. There's so many animals that are extinct. You think God created animals for them to not exist no more? Of course he didn't create animals to not exist anymore. The reason they're not existing is because of humans. And because they're not doing what they're supposed to do.
Because of a particular human.
Yeah, because of a specific set of humans. And they're even doing it with bees. You know bees? The honeybee. They're almost extinct.
Yeah.
And do you know what their solution to honeybees going extinct is? Not to help the bees and help them populate. Their solution is to create robotic bees to do the job of it. So they're creating little drone bees, little electronic bees to do the same job, because that's their mentality. Have you not look around? All these women with injections, filler, trying to look like our women. The world is literally going into descent. It's literally going to a point where the world can't live like this anymore. And the only way for us to fix it is to come back to keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. You heard the story of Noah? Vaguely. So you've got Noah, and there was a flood coming, and God told him to build an ark. Yeah. Now, you are in exactly the same situation now. We are in the same situation. The scripture says there was people going about their daily life, buying and selling, watching people are out here doing. Taking and giving in marriage, meaning people were sleeping around, making babies, making families. That's what people are doing now. Until the flood came. And the only people that were saved from that flood was Noah and his family. And people didn't listen. Because people didn't want to hear. The point is, people look at God and Jesus, so-called Jesus, and think that he's Jesus Christ, meek and mild, wouldn't hurt a little child. They think he's long-haired. They think he looks like this. He's got blue eyes. They think that he's coming back with rainbows, petals, and puppy dogs. That's what they think.
All of our great leaders were whitewashed. All of them. And when you look into, if you ever get a chance, right, search up Russian icons, because the depictions of our people, right, of our great leaders, were dark skinned, but they whitewashed them and made them look like this, made them look white. But you see this man here, right? This man here isn't Jesus, or so-called Jesus, who the world calls Jesus Christ, because that's not, Jesus isn't his name. His name is Yahushua, right? That's the closest we are at the moment to his name, right? Or Yahusha, you can say, right? Because J is the newest letter in the English language, right? So when the J came in, right, they put it on they put it on the beginning of the letter, because the original way they used to do it was IA. So when it says get me the scripture that says his name is John in there, search that in phone. It's in the Psalms, right? Because in the Bible, right, it tells you the name of the Most High, right? It tells you his name. Right? Yes, read the scripture out for me. It's gonna be in here actually. I can show you. I can actually show you. So this here, right, is the 1611 version of the Bible, right? And when this came out, right, there was no J in the English language, right? So a J would literally just be an I, right? It would be an I, and it was to bring out the how would you say it? The word Y, or to pronounce the word Y, right? So you got it. What's the scripture?
Psalm chapter 68 and verse 4. Can I read it?
Yeah.
Psalm chapter 68 and verse 4. Sing unto God, sing praises to his name. Extol him that rideth upon the heavens, by his name, Jah, and rejoice before him.
By his name, Jah, right? So even the Rastas, right, they have it closer to his name than anybody, right? Because they're using that name, right? So in here, so what was it? Psalms what? Sorry, what was it? Psalms what?
68.
68.
68 and 4. That's the point that you'll find if you look in like the history, if you look around you, that everything kind of ties in. Remember, we've been taught this book here is like fairy tale. You'll hear it and you'll believe, oh, it never really happened. But this is literal history. Thousands and thousands of years. When I say it prophesied, it predicted. They knew what was going to happen, and it happened to a T, down to Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, taking over Rome. You heard of Greece, you heard of Rome, you heard of Babylon. All of these places, the Bible said they were going to rule, and when it said they were going to rule, they ruled. Even down to the leaders who were going to rule. You make it make sense. It told you who the generals were going to be, who the leaders at that time were going to be, because that's how accurate.
Thousands of years before it even happened. Before they came on the.
And then they want you to believe that this book is made up like it's a fairy tale. The book is not a book of fairy tale. This book is a book of history and prophecy. And that's why all the other nations, they read the book and go, nah, it has to be true. So they try and slot themselves in where they want to fit in. But you have to go back and study the history, because it's not, like I said, it's not a fairy tale, it's not a story. Everything written in the book happened and took place, and it's our ancestors' history. Bani Israel, the children of Israel, the sons of God.